meditations of our hearts be pleasing and glorifying to you, for you are our strength and our salvation. Amen. Last week, we saw that Jesus is a terrible party guest. This week, we see that Jesus is a terrible house guest. And we see it before he even sets foot in anyone's home. Here we see Jesus walking right up to a perfect stranger and inviting himself over. Y'all, I don't know about you, but this breaks every single rule I was taught about invitations and etiquette when I was growing up. You do not invite yourself to someone else's house. It's rude. And beyond rudeness on Jesus' part, there's another element of social propriety at play. I talked a little bit last week in that porch worship about the politics of fellowship in Jesus' time. When who you hung out with mattered. Who you ate with mattered. Who you invited over mattered. People were paying attention. And it didn't matter just because you were associating with these people, but because who you were associating with was always intentional. It was always deliberate. It wasn't based on who you were friends with, who you enjoyed, who you liked. It was based on who you needed a favor from, or who would boost your social standing. All fellowship was a political transaction between people. Jesus disturbs this system when he does not wait for an invitation. Then he turns the system completely and totally upside down when he chooses to associate with a tax collector. And not just any tax collector. The passage says that Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector. That means he was the supervisor of the tax collectors. Remember that tax collectors in Jesus' time ran amok. They often took more money than the government demanded so they could keep it for themselves. If their boss was going to do the same, skim a little more off the top, then they'd have to take even more if they wanted to profit. So if Zacchaeus managed his collectors the way that most other chief tax collectors did, the crowd would have had plenty of reason to dislike him. He was a cog in a system that was actively oppressing and impoverishing them. No wonder they were angry. Jesus was supposed to be taking care of the poor. By this time, he had enough of a reputation that they knew what he was about. This was the man who fed the hungry. This was the man who healed the wounded. This was the man who welcomed home the hurt and the ostracized. Why? Why would he go out of his way to hang out with this guy who's getting rich by taking advantage of the poor? I get it. I get why they grumbled. But the short answer as to why Jesus would do this is grace. Grace is why Jesus is going out of his way to hang out with Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector. Grace is the reason Jesus sees past Zacchaeus' behavior, past his profession. Grace is the reason that Jesus publicly names Zacchaeus a son of Abraham, reminding the crowd that this man, yes, even this man, is a beloved child of God. No matter what he has done, this is what motivates Jesus. His primary concern is Zacchaeus' identity as part of the family. this is hospitable grace. There's a children's book that I thought of a lot this week. It's called The Tawny Scrawny Lion. And it tells a story of a lion with an insatiable appetite, which is a matter of concern for the smaller animals around him. So they come together and they send a rabbit to the lion. They say they're sending the rabbit as a delegate to reason with the lion and change his mind. But in reality, they just want a rabbit to serve as a decoy so they can get away while the lion is preoccupied. What the animals don't anticipate is that this little rabbit is very brave and very bold and very hospitable. So even in the face of imminent threat, the rabbit invites the lion to dinner. And when you have an insatiable appetite, you always accept an invitation to dinner. So before they know it, the lion is there in their space, this proven source of their suffering in the past, this potential source of even more suffering in the future, is joining them for a meal of carrot stew and berries. I'm sure these animals grumble. I'm sure they wish they could send a different decoy. Maybe one with a little more fear, maybe one with a little less hospitality. That night, the lion gorges himself at the meal, and when it's over, he's too full to ever consider eating anything else. Also, he realizes he really enjoys eating with these other animals instead of eating these other animals. So he keeps coming, and they keep feeding him, and he stops eating them, partly because he's no longer hungry, but also partly because now he knows them. It's hard to sit across the table from someone for any length of time and continue to hold on to your predisposed notions about them. It's hard to look someone in the eye, to hear their story, and to continue to judge them. It's hard to see someone and to listen to them and continue to cling to your assumptions and your presumptions about them. Jesus knows that. This simple act of calling Zacchaeus out and inviting himself over is Jesus throwing down the gauntlet for the crowd then and for the crowd now. This invitation is Jesus challenging all of us to take the time to sit across the table from people we don't know, to share bread with them, to listen to them, to spend time with them, to see them, and to wait and see if our hearts are softened. This simple act is Jesus challenging us all to hospitable grace. Hospitable grace that has the power to restore. Zacchaeus had terrible standing in his community. He may have had money, but he surely had very few meaningful relationships. He may have been, technically speaking, ritually clean, but he was socially very unclean. And when Jesus gave him the time of day, all of that changed. When Jesus showed hospitable grace, Zacchaeus was restored to health and well-being and wholeness. We know that because Zacchaeus behaves differently. He repents from previous wrongdoing, and he seeks to right any wrongs that he may have committed. Make no mistake, his actions are not someone who is trying to earn salvation. His actions are someone responding to salvation, freely given. That's how hospitable grace works. Jesus doesn't withhold hospitable grace until he views us worthy and then give it to us like a prize that we've won. Nor does Jesus dangle it in front of us like a carrot, pulling it away ever so slightly to get us to slowly, incrementally become better people. Jesus doesn't use hospitable grace as a bribe or an incentive or a reward. Jesus doesn't promise hospitable grace as payment for doing our jobs as disciples. This is not that kind of transaction. Jesus shows up in Zacchaeus' life and presents him with this gift, just as he is, right there, right then, with no strings attached. Jesus sees Zacchaeus and he declares to everyone that yes, he might be dishonest, and he may take advantage of people, and he may contribute to a system that victimizes people, and that is wrong. And it still doesn't change the fact that he is a child of God.